to domesticate me. My husband, Liam, kept a woman who looked just like me. He cooked for her every day. They were inseparable. He let her disrespect him in public, even let her slap him. By the time I found out, their love story was already the talk of the town. I tried to leave, but he wouldn't let me go. Can't you just give in a little? Love me a little more. He had people watch my every move while he was romancing her. I watched his self-directed drama with a cold indifference and started preparing my application for further studies abroad. By the time I had vanished without a trace, he finally realized what had happened and started a frantic, worldwide search for me. The driver dropped me off in front of Liam's office. I watched as a beautiful, radiant young woman threw herself into his arms. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but she looked a little like me. The driver, his face a mask of indifference, relayed his message to me. He had said, "She's younger than you, and more obedient." A wave of frustration washed over me. His warning was a blatant attack on the last bit of civility between us. He was warning me to be more obedient, to stop trying to have these pointless arguments with him. He could abandon me at any time. 13 years of love. We had gone from having nothing to having everything. But after the sweetness had faded, he started to complain that I was too independent, that my work was too demanding. Unlike other men's wives, who were content to be obedient and stay at home, to greet their husbands with a warm embrace and a hot meal, he wanted to domesticate me, to turn me into his own private possession, to have me follow his every command. The constant arguments had slowly eroded our relationship. Most men, to some extent, have a chauvinistic streak. I had once thought that this was just his way of showing his love. I had tried to compromise, to find a balance between my marriage and my work. I had even blamed myself, wondering if I had been too neglectful of his feelings. Until 3 months ago, when he had tried to make me quit my job at the lab. He wanted to control me, to own me. I had not agreed, and we had had a huge fight, which had led to a Cold War. During this Cold War, he had hidden my existence and had started a relationship with her. By the time I had found out, during a break from my experiments, he had already introduced her to all his friends. He had bought her a small villa next to his office, because he wanted to see her all the time. He had made her porridge and soup when she was sick, just because she wanted it. He had let her slap him in front of everyone when they argued, had let her publicly criticize him. My trembling hand dialed the number at the top of my contact list. The call connected almost immediately. I demanded an explanation. His voice on the other end was nonchalant. "I was just having some fun. It's not like I was hiding it from you. If you're so concerned, then quit your job and come home to be with me. Think about it. It's not like I can't support you. Why do you have to work? Anyone can do what you do. You're not indispensable." But I was just doing what I loved. My mind replayed the scene I had just witnessed. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down, and sent him a message. "If you can't respect my choices, we can get a divorce." Playing with people's emotions to get what you want. It's a despicable tactic. We had been entangled for so long, since it wasn't going to have a happy ending. It was time to end it. Love fades with an accumulation of disappointment. A friend sent me a video of him and her kissing in the rain. They were crying and kissing, and if I hadn't been in the picture, they would have looked like a romantic couple from a movie. Not the sordid affair I saw. The fleeting glimpse I had gotten that day. It wasn't my imagination. The her he was just having fun with. Her profile was almost identical to mine. Before, he had flirted with other women, supposedly to make me jealous. But he had always stayed within certain boundaries. But she was different. I could see the genuine pity in his eyes, even though he said it was nothing. He really did like her. I sat in the small apartment we had lived in since we got married, my mind in a turmoil. The small, 70-square-meter apartment was filled with the scent of our life together. It wasn't that we hadn't moved after his company went public, but we had always come back to this place, because it felt more like home. But now, looking back, all the past memories, all the deep affection, it was all a bitter irony. The crowded furniture in the living room made me feel suffocated, even a little nauseous. I fought back the urge to vomit and let the video play on a loop on the projector. The images were reflected in my eyes, like a thorn in my heart, like a beautiful, hazy, and dreamlike movie from our youth. Just like we used to be. He was willing to be so tolerant of her, but but he wanted to keep me in a cage for the rest of my life. He even had people watching me. I told myself, over and over again, that the world is always changing, that there is no such thing as a love that lasts forever. Or perhaps, he had always loved himself more. My own desires. They were not a reason for him to resort to emotional blackmail. In a daze, I heard a key turn in the lock. The door creaked open. The projector screen was turned off. I looked up and saw him at the entrance. My eyes, at some point, had filled with tears. The moment I looked up, a tear rolled down my cheek. He, who had been about to confront me, was stunned. The next second, he was on his knees by the sofa, holding me in his arms. The scent of her perfume on him. It finally made me unable to hold it in. I stumbled to the bathroom, and I could still hear his excuses. Chloe, don't cry. I'm sorry. I was too harsh today. I shouldn't have said that to you. I was just too worried about you. I was just so angry. Please forgive me. He was both accusing me and patting my back comfortingly. In the corner of my eye, I saw his phone light up with a message. In an instant, I felt as if I had been plunged into an icy abyss. According to him, he had tried to force me to quit my job because he was afraid I would overwork myself. He had cheated on me with a substitute to test my love for him. And he had been so tolerant of her to test his own tolerance for me. Everything was my fault. If I hadn't been so stubborn and had a cold war with him, he wouldn't have cheated. His excuses, coming out of his mouth, made me realize that I had never really known him. I didn't understand his logic, and I didn't want to. His eyes were full of pity as he gently patted my back. He complained, I've told you so many times, you have to eat properly. You're so obsessed with a bunch of useless data that you're ruining your health. It's not worth it. He knew that bunch of useless data was everything to me. I couldn't help but think back to our past. When we had first met, he had been a rich kid. An accident had taken everything from both of us. His family had gone bankrupt, and his parents had committed suicide by jumping into the sea. And my mother had died of cancer. On my way to the hospital to see her one last time, I had gotten into a car accident. The leg injury from the accident had made it impossible for me to stand for long periods of time, which meant I could never be a surgeon. We had huddled together in a small, rented apartment, encouraging each other, licking our wounds. We had supported each other, had become the most important person in each other's lives. After we got married, I had prepared for my graduate school entrance exams while helping him make connections, helping him rebuild his company. Later, I had had a threatened miscarriage and had lost the baby. He had held my hand by my hospital bed and had stayed with me all night. He had said that from then on, no matter what I decided to do, he would support me unconditionally. But after his family's business had recovered, and my own academic career was on the rise, he had suggested that I quit my studies and go to work for him. Perhaps because of the busyness and the hardship, we had overlooked our own flaws. At the time, I hadn't seen this as a test. In my 28th year, the year I graduated with my master's degree, we had had our biggest fight. He knew that for me to have switched from medicine to biology and to have the opportunity to pursue a doctorate was not easy. But he had been very insistent, saying it was unnecessary. That fight had lasted a month. In the end, he had been the one to back down. And, because of that, I had always felt that I was being selfish. That I owed him. Before, he had always said he would support my every decision. But as time went on, he had started to think that I was too headstrong, not obedient enough. We had supported each other through the hardest of times, had promised to grow old together. I'm sorry. I was wrong to have had such high expectations of him. The long road of life is full of different forks. From now on, I had to walk my own path. I shouldn't expect him to feel the same way. Shouldn't hold him to my own moral standards. We had supported each other in hardship, but we were not fated to grow old together. Chloe, have you agreed to my proposal? He was visibly excited. He thought my apology was a sign of submission, of admitting my mistake. He held me, promising to break up with the woman on the side, to live a good life with me. I looked at his excited expression, my heart strangely calm. Can a broken mirror really be put back together? Even if it is, it will never be the same. As he wished, I stopped going to the lab. When he came home, I was always there, with a hot meal. But the food was not made by me. He couldn't tell the difference. And this time, the one who was frequently at the company was him, not me. He was even busier than when the company was just starting out. His excuse for not coming home was no longer socializing, but meetings and overtime. To appease me, he even had his assistant call me every day to report his daily schedule. Actually, he didn't have to go to such lengths. I knew he was busy comforting her. I could turn a blind eye to it, because I was also busy preparing my application for further studies abroad. We both had things to do. Not seeing each other was the best choice. He was too busy to see me, so he naturally didn't notice anything unusual. But someone else was eager to see me. That person was her. I don't know how she did it, but she even found the coffee shop where I usually sat. The person my mentor had hired to hand over the materials had just left. The materials were still on the table. She sat down across from me, and the driver who was supposed to be watching me was nowhere to be seen. You're his wife. In the eyes of outsiders, I didn't even have a name of my own. Mrs. Hayes was enough to represent everything. She pressed her lips together, a cold glint in her eyes. Her exquisite makeup couldn't hide the bloodshot veins in them. She was a completely different person from the bright, lively girl I had first seen. Anyone who found out they were a substitute, a third party, would probably not be in a good mood. And I heard that her family was well off. When she had first met him, she seemed to have just returned to the country. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so completely fooled by him. Now it seems she has found out that he had been lying to her. I silently gathered the materials on the table. The waiter happened to bring 2 new cups of coffee. I knew she had been watching me for a while, but I didn't understand what she was planning. A silent, awkward atmosphere settled between us. The sky outside, which had been clear just a moment ago, suddenly turned dark. Large, dark clouds gathered. He was supposed to be coming home today. If I didn't go back soon, it would be inconvenient. So I had to be the one to break the silence. Yes. What can I do for you? Your husband is cheating on you, lying to another woman. You're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to give an explanation. I looked up and met her questioning gaze. Regarding your relationship, perhaps I'm the one who deserves an apology, but the one who should be apologizing is him. After all, we were both deceived. You shouldn't be coming to me for an explanation. I am not his parent. He is not my property. I have no right or obligation to control him. She was speechless for a moment. I don't know what she was thinking, but she took a check from her bag and put it on the table. I don't want to be a third party. Here's $5 million. You take it and divorce him. Get as far away as possible. Her tone was forceful, but she didn't dare to meet my eyes. She just looked out the window, where the rain had just started to fall. For some reason, I sensed a hint of guilt in her actions. The rain was coming down. I wasn't in a hurry to go back. I picked up the check and looked at it with interest. This was the first time someone had tried to buy my husband from me. Miss, you're rich and beautiful. Why would you want to be hung up on one person? I paused. What I had said sounded a little strange. Afraid she would think I was the one who was unwilling to let go. I added, I mean, you don't have to give me any money. When the time comes, I will leave. He's not a good person. The sooner you realize the truth and get away, the better. Don't wait until you're too deep in to regret it. She snatched the check from my hand and glared at me. She seemed to disagree with my advice. She stood up, slammed her hands on the table, and with every word, she moved closer to me, though her posture was aggressive. It was also strangely amusing. Do I look that cheap? Do you think I want to fight you for a man? I looked at her. She looked at me. It was my turn to be confused. The meaning of her words just now, wasn't it to get me to leave him, so their relationship could be legitimate? She seemed to have read my confusion. She suddenly picked up her coffee cup and downed it. The bitter, sour taste of the black coffee made her wrinkle her pretty nose. What century are we in? I have no time for that kind of drama. Since it has nothing to do with you, you should get out of the way. When the fight starts, you don't want to get caught in the crossfire. Playing games. Let's see who's playing who. After that day, she would often avoid his assistant's surveillance and come to see me when he wasn't around. And she would always leave before he came back. So much so that I had the strange feeling that the one she was secretly seeing was not him, but me. She would usually just sit in the living room, not speaking, so quiet that I would sometimes forget she was there. Over time, I had strangely come to accept her presence, and she also knew about my plan. She said she was almost ready. She asked me when I was leaving, if I needed help. She could help me distract him and his assistant. I didn't know if her revenge was real or not. I only knew that if he wanted to stop me, it would be too easy. I had no connections, and I had no money under his control. Besides my own meager salary and the bank card he had given me, I had nothing. And what he had given me, and what I had of my own, he could take it all back at any time. With his current methods, it would be easy. The reason she knew about my plan was because no matter what, my choice was in her favor. So, with my tacit approval, she took a lipstick from her Chanel bag and placed it in the crack of the sofa, as if it had been accidentally dropped. This day, as usual, he came home from the company. He sat on that old sofa, waiting for me to bring him his dinner. When I placed the dishes, which the part-time cook had prepared, on the table, I glanced at him. His right hand was unconsciously hidden behind his back. The lipstick she had left behind was in his hand. It was the evidence she had left after her visit. His brow was furrowed with an anxious expression, as if he were a young boy who had been caught cheating for the first time. Did she come to see you? Seeing my silence, he was even more certain. He wanted to come and hug me, but I subtly dodged him. Listen to me. It's not what you think. I've already broken up with her. It's just some business dealings. What she told you. She made it all up. The more silent I was, the more anxious he became. Things were not going as he had planned. Or perhaps it was my coldness that had made him lose his usual composure. He had betrayed me, but he also demanded my unwavering loyalty. He was afraid I no longer loved him. In all these days, I had reflected more than once. When had he started to use love as a weapon to hurt me? He had unilaterally made me quit my job. He had had me followed whenever I left the house. Chloe, you have to believe me. Or, like now, he would demand my unconditional trust. He gripped my arms tightly, the pressure making me feel suffocated. Liam, what are you so guilty about? She just came to return the things you had given her. Hearing my answer, a flicker of remorse crossed his eyes. He glanced around the house and, seeing nothing new, became wary again. Where are the things? She brought them back, but it was useless. I told her to throw them away. During our conversation, his grip on my shoulders loosened, and I was able to break free and turn the tables. I put my trembling hands behind my back, hiding my nervousness. I'm not in a good mood. I want to go out for a walk by myself. His eyes darkened, and he came back to his senses. I'm sorry. I've been too busy lately. Where do you want to go? I'll go with you. I cut him off nonchalantly. I know you haven't broken up with her. You can sort it out yourself during this time. I don't want to come back to any more drama. If you're not at ease, you can have your assistant follow me. You've been doing that all along, haven't you? Perhaps sensing my dissatisfaction, he was silent for a long time, just staring at me. Chloe, you will come back, won't you? We both knew the answer to that question. I smiled and said, of course. Where else would I go? He was clearly satisfied with this answer. His warm breath tickled my neck. He had agreed to my request. He said it was to make it up to me. So he meticulously confirmed the flight, the hotel, and the tour guide with his assistant, to ensure that no detail escaped his control. The night before I left, he was a little drunk and, under the influence of alcohol, tried to be intimate with me. The last few times he had tried, I had refused him, saying I wasn't feeling well. This time, with the help of alcohol, he forced me onto the bed. Afterward, he fell into a deep sleep, but I was in the bathroom, vomiting, unable to sleep all night. Even I didn't know when his touch had become so unbearable, but it didn't matter. The world is a big place. There are places where he can't reach. I was on high alert until the moment I boarded the plane. Freedom seemed to be within my grasp. A cold sweat soaked through my clothes, but I didn't notice. The person he had sent to follow me was always at a distance. Only when the plane had actually taken off did I breathe a sigh of relief. The cloying gaze that had been following me was finally gone. I went to the bathroom, changed into the clothes she had prepared for me, and checked into a hotel 6 kilometers from his company. While I was waiting to check in at the hotel, a college student, with a suitcase and a black bucket hat, silently sat down next to me. The plan went off without a hitch. I took the suitcase and the 3 room keys she had left behind and randomly chose a room. In the suitcase were my ID and a new phone. A phone without any tracking or surveillance. The moment my Plane landed. His assistant, realizing I was gone, immediately sent a message back to him. He, upon receiving the news, had his assistant immediately change his flight and go to the school where I was supposed to be, to wait for me. But after waiting for 2 days, he still hadn't seen me. When he inquired, he found out that there was no one with my name in the new batch of students. The airport's surveillance also showed that I had not left, but had boarded that plane. He had no choice but to contact my mentor, only to be told that I had already rejected the offer to study abroad. But he didn't believe it, because my phone data was constantly being synced to his. I had clearly already accepted my mentor's invitation. If it hadn't been for that night, I might have really, happily, submitted my application and left, thinking everything was perfect. But that night, as he was holding me, his phone, which he had left on the table, had suddenly lit up. He had his back to the table, so he hadn't noticed. But I had seen the screen clearly. The message on the screen. It was the conversation I had just had with my mentor. The opportunity to study abroad was rare. My mentor, wanting me to go while I was still young, had invited me to go with him. At the time, out of consideration for his feelings, I had not immediately agreed. But the moment I had left the lab, the driver had taken me to see a good show. After I got home, I had told my mentor my decision. He had been overjoyed and had sent me the required materials. These were things that were supposed to be private, yet they had been synced to his phone, one by one. I don't know when it started, but his surveillance of me was everywhere. He had treated me as his possession, had almost fanatically collected all my personal information, but had never given me the respect of a person. I had had to change my plan at the last minute. The day I had rejected my mentor's offer was also the day I had met her. The meeting at the coffee shop was not our first. Our first meeting had been the year I had just been accepted into graduate school. My mentor had taken me to visit the lab, and in a large, sterile container, was the 21-year-old her. She had a respiratory problem and could not survive in the outside world. To save her life, her family had sent her to the lab, as both a test subject and a patient. The experiment had been a success. She had left the lab 6 months ago, as a member of the team. I had once seen her off. Meeting him was an accident, but when she found out that I was his wife, and understood my situation, she had been doing everything she could to help me escape. She had even refused my offer of payment. The reason? She was rich, and I was not as rich as she was, so I had been able to hide in his blind spot, to successfully escape his surveillance. The most dangerous place is often the safest. As expected, he thought I had run away abroad and had hired a bunch of people to search for me. After several fruitless attempts, he had also bought a plane ticket and had gone after me himself. At that time, I had been staying at the hotel for almost 2 weeks. After he left, her parents' company, with lightning speed, had poached almost half of his company's core members. The internal members had anonymously reported that the company had not been paying its taxes, which had led to another investigation. With the person in charge out of the country, there was a delay in communication. So when he came back, his company was already in a mess. I hadn't wanted to go after his company. After all, it was once our joint effort. But she had shown me the evidence she had collected. His company was not clean. Besides the first few years, in the later years, there had been a large number of unaccounted for transactions. It didn't look like any legitimate business. It was possible that he was involved in illegal activities. So, with my help, she had gotten the password to his family's safe, and had successfully taken out the evidence of his crimes. Before he came back, I had filed for a divorce. Under heavy protection, I had finally gathered the courage to meet with him. When he saw me, his eyes were bloodshot, and his shirt and suit were unusually wrinkled, as if he hadn't slept or changed his clothes in days. He wanted to rush at me and demand an explanation, but he was blocked by the iron bars of the interrogation room. The once invincible dark horse of the business world. Now he was just a prisoner in an interrogation room. Do you have no heart? Chloe, I loved you. I would have given you everything. And you? Is 13 years of love a lie? You conspired with outsiders to ruin me, to ruin our own company. I looked him straight in the eye and answered his questions seriously. Liam, you just wanted to satisfy your own need for control. You didn't love me. As for the company, if you hadn't used it for illegal activities, it wouldn't have come to this. His face was dark, his eyes a venomous glare. He suddenly laughed. I'm not getting a divorce. You will always be my wife. If we go back to the hardship we once shared, can we go back to the past? It seemed that as long as he could preserve a small trace of the past, a small connection, he would be satisfied. Take care of yourself. I didn't tell him that he wouldn't be getting out for a long time. She had told me that the amount of money involved was too large. 7 to 10 years was unavoidable if he didn't agree to a divorce. My chances of winning a lawsuit were also very high. I didn't have to worry too much. After that, I never saw him again, and I was finally free to do whatever I wanted, without any criticism from my family. Only his lawyer would occasionally appear before me. All his assets had been legally frozen, including our marital property. The final verdict came down. He was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years in prison. My mentor, after finding out the whole story, contacted me again, asking about my intentions. This time, I no longer had to care about anyone's opinions. I could pursue my dreams without any worries. 3 months later, at the airport, as I was leaving, I never expected her to come. The scenery in Germany is nice. You'll like it. The food is not very good, though. She handed me a letter. Inside was a signed divorce agreement. Thank you. I didn't know how she had convinced him, but this was undoubtedly the best gift for me. I can only say, you're lucky you weren't involved in his mess, and you're lucky you weren't corrupted by him. From what he said, he was originally planning on dragging you down with him, but you had your own ideals and persistence. That's why he didn't succeed. I'm lucky I met you, that you were willing to help me, I added. I said it with sincerity, because without her help, I might not have been able to leave so smoothly. Her eyes flickered, a hint of guilt in them. Her family's company had quickly taken over a significant market share after his downfall. I knew that, but no matter what her motives were, the result was what I wanted. Before I left, she said, I wish you all the best in the future. I said, you too. A parting, though not a final one, is still precious. For the next 5 years, I devoted myself to my work and studies at the Institute. I rarely went out. Even the teachers at the Institute said I was a workaholic. There were new relationships that came my way, but I no longer needed them. The next time I saw her was at an academic research conference hosted by my mentor. She was there as an investor. The conference was about a drug that could inhibit cancer cells. As I was standing on the stage, giving a presentation, our eyes met. As she had said, my future was bright. No matter our age, we can all become the best version of ourselves. Isabella's epilogue. When I had first started seeing him, I hadn't noticed anything unusual, until he had bought a villa near my house and had demanded I move in. Only then did I realize something was wrong. His need for control was too strong. He wanted to monitor my life. 247. It was not right. I had even asked him if he had ever seen a psychologist, but he had just been evasive, saying he was just insecure. Later, even when we fought, he was always the first to apologize, so I had not paid much attention. But in our 3rd month of dating, I had found out I was a third party. The moment I found out, I had been plunged into an icy abyss. He had hidden it so well. If it hadn't been for his wife being a doctor who had once been involved in my treatment, and if I hadn't asked the doctors at the lab, I would have never known the whole story. They were fighting, and I was just a plaything he had found when he was angry. The news had made me so angry. I had immediately called him to confront him. At first, he had pretended to be nonchalant, and had even lied, saying he was already in the process of getting a divorce. He had hidden it from me because he wanted me to be at ease, not because he was trying to deceive me. But the truth was the opposite. He had not only not intended to get a divorce, but had also planned on continuing to deceive me. And I was not a doormat to be walked all over. So I had played along, just to see what he was up to. But then I had found out that his wife was being followed. Her phone was being monitored, like a pet, who had no choice but to be kept. And the woman I had seen at the lab, the one who was so brilliant in her field, she was a completely different person. Remembering his previous request that I move into his villa, he wanted to trap me, to make me his own personal doll. At this thought, I had shuddered. Since he wanted to play games, then I would play with him. For this, I had first tested her waters. After learning that she was at least a normal person, I had started to take action. I would help her, but on one condition. She had to learn to save herself. after she had escaped his surveillance. I had immediately contacted my family's company and had had them start poaching his talent. I had thought it would take a lot of effort, but it had been surprisingly easy. Before he was officially arrested, I had taken the new divorce papers she had drafted to him one last time. I didn't like to leave things half done. If I was going to help someone, I was going to see it through. A divorce was not final until the papers were signed. I had just used a little trick. I had told him that I had only targeted his company because I was jealous of her. As long as he divorced her, I could help him get a reduced sentence. He had agreed almost without thinking. He probably had the idea of, as long as there's life, there's hope. But the moment I had gotten the signed papers, I had turned to leave, not saying a single word about a reduced sentence. He had roared in the interrogation room. I had turned and smiled at him. I was just kidding. I don't have that kind of power. As for the revenge that would follow, that would depend on whether he had the life to get out of there. I had never had a kind heart for those who had toyed with me, and he was a scumbag. I just had to release a little bit of information, that he was my family's rival, without them having to do anything. There would be plenty of people who would want him dead. And as expected, in his 3rd year of prison, I had received a message. He had died in a gang fight. His handsome face had been beaten beyond recognition. Later, when I had seen her again, she had returned to her former, radiant self.